right, this should be interesting. Having a baby should be pre-assessed as carefully as adopting a child.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Aishah, do you want to go first? We'll go clockwise on this one.
Boy, okay, so I think personally, anyone that's planning to have a baby, someone by themselves or a couple, whoever, yes, you need to assess, can you financially support that child? However, the assessment should be an individual one for the individuals that are about to have the baby. I do not agree with pre-assessing based on what maybe some state guidelines would be, because then it begins to get really intrusive and we begin to determine what groups of people can have children, at what rates and whatnot. So in short, yes, on an individual basis by the person or by the people that are going to have the child.
Corey?
Yes, completely. You are creating a human being. You are growing that child up. You are trying to instill morals and worldviews and make sure that child is healthy. You cannot do that if you do not have the means to do it. And then you put yourself in a situation where you're now struggling, the child is struggling, your partner, if they're still around, is struggling, everyone around you are going through situations that are very negative, all because you didn't think beforehand that this is something that you can't actually do. I think you need to go through, what does it take to have a real life while having a child? How do I make sure that the health is always going to be there, you have everything they need, education, etc. Until you have that in your head, don't have a child. You need to have all of those known, or at least a plan to get there before you even consider it. I've always thought that. So personally, I will never have a child until I know I can give them anything in the world that they need to get to the point in life where they're happy and healthy. So yes.
Yep.
Yes. So again, 100%. I think there should be a pre-assessment so you understand exactly what you can provide, what you can offer. I agree with what Corby was saying. Like, you need to be able to raise that child to be functioning and hopefully high functioning within society. There is a caveat though, and also that relates to Corey's point, is like, I'm similar. I would want to be able to give my child the world, but I think that prerequisite condition would stop so many people from having children, because sometimes you're not going to always be ready to give them the perfect life. So there needs to be a balance. You need to like pre-assess, but also have room and make concessions for just life. Like, for instance, the woman might have like her body clock. She's paying attention to that. You might have aging parents. You might want to give them grandkids. So there's different conditions, but yes, pre-assessment is key.
I believe, yes, you need to pre-assess whether it be adoption or having a child, because not just financially, but emotionally, because it's very straining. And you may not be ready for that. That's why there's such things as postnatal depression. And there's just so much, even with men, they have postnatal depression themselves. And a lot of people don't talk about these things. So I do believe that you need to think about your money. You need to think about your mental. You need to make sure that you can, because babies are expensive more now than before. I'm sure of it. So, you know, you can't always go to the dollar store for diapers. Sometimes you need to make sure you have everything down packed. You need to move house. It's straining. So mentally and financially, make sure you pre-assess what you're doing before you do it.
Yep, I agree. I've always thought the same like Corey, but probably not in the almost surgical way of putting it, in the sense of a pre-assessment. Like, okay, you're gonna have a baby, so, you know, let's get out the pre-assessment form. So do you have a stable job earning 25k yet? No, I didn't really think of it like that. But in the sense of determining whether you are financially ready to have the kid, yes, you need to think about that, and I don't think a lot of people do. I know, Jenniah, you said that it may stop a lot of people from having children, but not everyone should be having children in that case. Like, okay, we're going to have to take that as a bullet. And I think a lot of people having children in adverse circumstances when they're not ready for to have a child in their life causes the overpopulation that we're seeing, causes the reduction in resources, blah, blah, blah. That's a separate point. But yeah, I do think that some sort of assessment needs to be made, man, because things can get out of control quite quickly, and you're not giving yourself or the child a fair chance.
That's
Dami?
it for me.
The last one.
So I think that an assessment would be quite good, but maybe like a loose one. So a list, maybe a few questions that people who have tested positive for pregnancy, or couples that know they're going to have a baby, are given a set of questions which make them evaluate their capability of having a kid, and really allowing them to investigate whether they can do it. Like for me recently, I found out that the baby doesn't even fucking sleep for like the first year properly, and that's been like massively off-putting for me. So yeah, an assessment where these things are highlighted, these conditions are highlighted, would be quite good, I feel.
Man said not having sleep is the biggest determining factor.
It's so important, though.
That's a madness. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, it depends. Some babies, they sleep throughout,
Boy.
so you will have restless nights, of course. But
Boy.
I mean,
The main thing I took from that question was that it said a pre-assessment like when
as
you're
carefully
adopting,
as
and
adopting a child.
We
might not know.
But when you're adopting a child, the reason why I was kind of like, boy, when this question came out, is because the government or the council get involved.
Yeah.
And so my view is, yes, like pre-assess individually, but if the government or council, whoever it is that gets involved when you're adopting a child, the adoption agency started getting involved in families having their own kids like that, I think that could get pretty dangerous.
Probably a class issue. After
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because they do that as
Yeah.
well. If you're a single mother, you get funded by the government once again. So.
If those pre-assessments had to occur to the same kind of regimented level as an adoption, I wouldn't be here, literally. Like, not that it was some tragic story, but the perfect conditions were not there when I was born. Again, not tragic, no stories, but look here.
Doing all
Thriving, yeah?
Jeez,
my guy.
Man,
So I think, you know what? You bringing up, you clarifying the question makes my answer no. Like, it doesn't have to be the same as like adopting a child where it's regimented and there's a tick list. You just got to know, like, hopefully you and your partner, you have an idea of kind of what kind of life you want, what kind of standard you want for your child, and what your expectations are. You work towards it, and you kind of figure it out along the way. I think that's more realistic than we're talking. I think the way we're answering, and obviously when you're given a question, you kind of answer in like an idealistic way. Yeah. But really, you'll be like, okay, babes, like, you're earning 28 or whatever, I'm earning whatever. How you feeling? Like, are you ready? What more do we need to do? Have we been on enough holidays? Are we ready to save? Are we ready to commit? You kind of work this out. This kind of goes back to the podcast on love, where it's like, you have your love-ometer, that was jokes, and you just kind of have like your baby-ometer. You kind of know, okay, we're kind of getting close to that stage now. Maybe we're married and whatnot. It works itself out. But I definitely think it's important to have conversations constantly, 100%. Constantly, especially when you're getting round the time of maybe wanting to conceive.
But I think it's different as well, because you can adopt a child at any age, well, beyond under 18. So you can't really adopt a baby, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you're having a child, that's coming from your partner or from you know what I'm saying? So it's different than if you adopt a 5-year-old or 8-year-old. It's different even financially and emotionally.
And I think there's a difference in options as well, because when you choose to adopt someone, you've chosen to adopt someone, you know what I mean? When you fall pregnant,
unless you planned it.
You wouldn't have necessarily chosen to have the child, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, I don't know a lot, but some people become pregnant and it's a surprise.
Yeah.
You don't
go,
you don't adopt someone by accident. So in that way, you have to have different parameters that you're assessing these things on. But at the same time, I agree, Jenniah, that some of these conversations that are having doesn't need to be so black and white and criteria specific. Like, we need to know generally, are we in a good place to bring another life into this planet and look after it sufficiently? Yes or no, kind of thing. And that's not to say that, okay, you've had this conversation now that when the child's head, everything's going to be rosy. No, because as you mentioned, Taylor, before, postnatal depression can come out of nowhere. You don't have to have any precursors to that for it to come. So you can think that you're ready. You might not necessarily be emotionally. So, but yeah, I think definitely some sort of assessment within yourself, probably going back to Aishah's very, very initial point. But having authorities and governments involved is just a mad thing. And isn't that what China did at one point with the one child policy? That is very crazy. Like, I can see why they wanted to implement such policies or did implement such policies, but I think we're in a environment, society where that couldn't run. Surely that couldn't run.
Although you had
but
that,
you never know.
That advisor who was short-lived in number 10, whatever his name was, the one that agreed with eugenics, and he one of his beliefs was forced sterilization of certain classes of women. So this is what I mean. Like, if it becomes that intrusive, that's where I'm like, whoa, no way.
It's too much.
Okay, but what about? So we all know money makes the world go round. What about people on benefits? Like, should the state say, you're on benefits, but you're pregnant? Let's go through this criteria.
The maths
They did
I
start
didn't.
doing that though, because people were just getting. It came to a point on
They were
BBC
getting pregnant
Three,
in order to get.
They
the
were just
benefits.
getting pregnant in order to get.
But I
new
feel like
housing
that's a
and-
minority of people in the media that hone in. Yeah. So
But
I
for
don't-
those minority, do we not think that there needs to be conditions put in place? Or
Well, then we should put conditions in place for families that have a certain history of. So, just because someone has money, it doesn't mean that that's a good environment for a child to be brought up in. So I don't think that just because there's a family on benefits that we need to investigate that more.
But taking that specific example of someone abusing the system and bringing children into the world without necessarily wanting to provide any sort of anything for them, just to exploit government money, that essentially we all are funding this lavish lifestyle that they're exploiting.
But
is that a problem?
Lavish lifestyle, that's the thing.
No, but it's like, so if, for instance, if you have a child and you're already on benefits and you're not making any form of way after the year maternity to actually find a job, they're then having another child after the next year. We're now stair-stepping children and not having a job.
So I don't think that the situation is as black and white as that. I hear what you're saying. Like, should we, they're not getting a job, should we allow them to keep having children when the government is funding?
Exactly.
However, like, you have people that are working, that are having jobs, which are probably more reliant on the government than we realise, just because they're not receiving benefits. They're receiving government help in other ways, which we fund as taxpayers. It's not in benefit payments, but it doesn't mean that they're not dependent on the state in some way or another, whether that be through health means, hospital, education, the fact that social carers might have to go around constantly, even if both parents are in work, because there's a history of, abuse in that family or whatever it might be. So I hear what you're saying, but I wouldn't categorically say, someone that's on benefits having another child, we shouldn't allow that.
My specific point on that was people that are abusing the system and having children to exploit the system rather than they're just on benefits and having more kids. Is that a problem? It's those that know the system well enough that think, okay,
If I do this,
two kids I get this much, 3 kids I get that much. Okay, cool.
And there are,
like
there
that
are
is
some like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a hypothetical situation. That's real.
Yeah.
And is that a problem? Yes or no? Should we do something about that? Yes or no? That's a different discussion. But I think there is room to have a conversation about that.
Fully.
I think people are always gonna abuse any system that you create.
100%.
Like, a system isn't gonna be 100% efficient. And I'm sure, like, I don't know the numbers, so I can't say definitely, but I'm pretty sure that number of people that are specifically having kids to benefit from the system is probably a minority of the people that actually do need that help
Yeah, 100.
when they do have children. So I think it would be kind of unfair to scrutinize the whole system because of that small percentage that actually, abuse it. Because I mean, it's very difficult to keep a system 100% efficient.
I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. I don't have any experience, but I don't know how easy it is to abuse the system here, because you hear of people that are still literally cannot physically work. The Department of Work and Pensions do some kind of assessment and decide that they don't need benefits anymore. And then all of a sudden, no, you're deemed fit to work, and then the person dies. So, I mean, I think if it was easy to abuse a system, we wouldn't have lots of cases like that. So this is why I'm a bit kind of skeptical about that point. But
I work directly with people on the benefit system, like day in, day out. And you get literally both extremes. Like I've had cancer patients, people with terminal illnesses, people with like mad physical injuries being told that they can work because they can lift their hand up in the air. Like the disability assessment for like personal independence payment and other benefits are mad. Like they will ask you to do basic things like, can you take a few steps forward? Can you open a cupboard? Like if you can do that,
You can
cool,
go to
you
war.
can work. It's mad. But then you get the other side, people that are healthy, that are fairly young, that have no obvious or medical issues, that are managing to just do job searching, and that's it. So what happens when you're on benefits, like when you're on universal credit, you have to obviously go to the job center once or twice a month, and you have to be job searching. And then you have like a journal where you show your work coach, yeah, like I'm looking for work. Bro, I've seen man say, yeah, Jenniah, like I'm looking for work. Then I'll be like, show me your journal. Man's looking for jobs in like north of the country, just so that he could put jobs on the journal. It's like, bro, what, was you gonna travel to flipping Durham to work there? I didn't see where the location was. Like, you get people doing the maddest things to get benefits. So it's